For decades, families have been told that love, support, and staying connected to a child struggling with substance use is enabling, and that tough love is the only way to help. We don't hear enough about the families who are going against that narrative and choosing other paths to family recovery. This is a part of an ongoing series meant to elevate the voices of families recovering through relationship. Something our guest Kelly Krehbiel shared during our prep conversation that was really powerful is that before she found craft, she believed she needed to take a rigid stance as a parent. She tried hard lines, punishments, and doing everything she could to control the situation. Looking back now, she can see that all it did was cause her son to retreat and hide. As Kelly began changing the way she responded, she became someone her son no longer had to hide his struggle from. And that is the transformation at the heart of Kelly's story. She went from trying to control her son because she was terrified to becoming a safe person he could call when he was struggling. Kelly also serves on the board of Relentless Pursuit Outreach and Recovery, supporting women affected by human trafficking and substance use, where she has seen firsthand why compassion, harm reduction, and human connection matter. So, thank you so much for being here to share your story today, Kelly.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm really excited.
So, before you found craft, and learned about harm reduction or anything like that, what did you believe that we talked a little bit about what you believed, but just give a little bit more of that background in your belief system, about how you felt you had to approach things with your son.
Yeah, well, I think, really most of parenting is figuring out as you go. And, you kind of do what you know, and you kind of think about your past and how you were raised and what you were taught. And it was just kind of, you got to follow the rules. And if you don't, you're going to get punished. And, there's going to be repercussions. And you kind of try to manhandle the situation. Um, and that's all I really knew. I didn't really know any other way. I just thought I have to hold the line, and I have to make him mind and follow the rules. And these are the things that are allowed, and these are the things that aren't, and you're going to obey those rules.
Mhm.
And then I had a child that would not conform. That was just his own spirit, and no matter what I did, I just couldn't control him. I couldn't do it. And I was so envious of parents that could. I was like, how are you getting them to mind and do everything you say and follow all the rules? And I just had this child that just wasn't like that. That's not the way he was built. And I just didn't know what to do. I thought, and I judged people like that too. That's what bugs me now. Is I know back then that I judged people whose kids were wild.
Mhm.
Like, I can't believe they're letting them do that, or that they're not able to, drive the behavior in the right way. And pretty soon, I was the one being judged.
Isn't it humbling? Like,
Mhm.
because I was the same way. I was so judgmental. I thought if I do this action, then this is how my child will act. If I just do everything the right way, then I'll have a good kid who listens and is well mannered and does all the things. And she did for a long time, and then she stopped. And then I realized it had nothing to do with me. Well, she was just choosing to, and so I had to learn a new way to interact with her, but it is a very humbling experience to learn that all of the judgments you've been putting on others now you're in that situation.
Yeah, and I won't say that I was the best rule follower growing up. I was definitely like partied and had my friends and, snuck out and did what my husband and I both thought was normal teen behavior. So we did try to parent a little bit different in that way. Like, let's talk to him about it. Let's say you can always call us if you're drinking, have those more open conversations. Um, the way we were raised, we didn't have those. So we kind of thought, okay, let's make it to where they're safer. Let's, be like, you know what, if you're going to do that, let us know. We want you to be safe.
Mhm. Yeah. I had that same approach too because I thought I was approaching things from the way that I learned, and things were pretty open when I was growing up. And so I thought, well, if I'm just open with her like that, I'll get the same result. And that was, the complete opposite of that. So when you think back on that time, what were you trying to control? What did that look like?
Oh, I mean, everything, especially with all the apps now, and you're tracking your child and I mean, we worked from home too. We had our own business. So we were very, very there. We were, I mean, I knew where he was at all times. When I started to see the pendulum start to swing to, worse behavior, to, schools falling off, it was no longer just alcohol and weed. When the pills were introduced, the pendulum completely swung out of control. And I was just drowning. I was like, I don't even know what to do with this. You just, it went so quickly out of control that I was just scrambling, trying to figure out what to do. And finally, when he was 16, my husband and I sent him to a therapeutic boarding school for a year. We just were just beyond, we just thought we got to keep him alive. We got to get him somewhere safe because we can't keep him safe.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
we just didn't know how to do it. And he was so young.
How did that go with him being at the therapeutic boarding school? Did he do well there or
He actually did well there. I think as far as some of those programs, there's good ones and bad ones. I do feel like it was a pretty religious based one. He had a really good therapist there, and I really did like her. I do think though that there was a lot of trauma caused by that because he was ripped away from everything he knew, all of his friends, his family, and he talked quite a bit about that since, that was very traumatic for him. And I can imagine, I mean, basically locked down, not really locked down, but in a facility out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, it was near our city, so we could go visit every once in a while and we could have phone calls. But I mean, it was 9 months and it was traumatic for him. But I will say he did do pretty well for the next couple years. And it did interrupt the behavior. It did kind of get him back on the right track. So I'm not sad I did it. I'm not upset that I did it. I still think it was the right thing to do. And he does too. He says, I know that you saved me there, but it was really traumatic to be ripped away from everybody.
yeah, nothing is all good, right? There's good and bad
Right.
in everything. And I think that when we're really desperate, I almost did it too. I was looking at all kinds of things, just anything, because I was so desperate. But I want to say about the apps quickly that those tracking apps can backfire. So, like, it seems like they should give you peace of mind. But a lot of times what I notice is it makes everything worse because they're just parents are constantly on there looking at it, and so they're more desperate because they're making meaning out of every single move their child makes. And so I just wanted to go back to that for anybody who's
Hmm.
listening in that situation. I almost never see those apps work well. They don't help.
Absolutely not. Looking back on it, all it did, you know, it didn't change any of his behavior. And all it did was have me completely in an anxiety spiral watching it.
Yeah.
I mean, it
Yeah.
didn't do anything to change what he was going to be doing. And
Yeah.
so the information I was getting, if he was going to be in a place he shouldn't be, whether I was looking at it or not.
Yeah.
So they are, I know that parents are so wrapped up into those right now. Um, but man, I don't think it's a good idea. I
Yeah.
don't. I don't.
Yeah, and it's like you don't know what you're gonna do with the information once you get it. It makes you hyper vigilant and it just it just backfires. So if you're doing
Absolutely.
it and it's not working, I just want to give you permission to only use it in emergencies. That's the big thing is it's great to have for an emergency. I had Helena's Snapchat and when I couldn't find her, I would get on there just to make sure. See, when was the last time she read or said sent something? Find out that she was okay, and then not look at anything else. And it took a lot of strength to do that, but I knew that I was actually going to suffer, create my own suffering if I didn't use restraint with my access to that app. And I think
Yes.
that that's good for everybody to remember.
Yeah, and I'll skip ahead a few years, probably 4 or 5 years to where I wasn't following him, but I got to the point to where my phone wasn't in the room at night. And I silenced him, his friends, his girlfriend. Nobody could get through to me at night, and they still can't. My sleep has to come first. I mean, um, that was really hard for me, but it was necessary for my nervous system. I even had to change the ring on my phone because I had such a trigger reaction when it went off.
Mhm.
So you can get yourself really, really spun up with the technology.
Yeah, absolutely. I had to do the same thing where I had to turn my ringer off at night. I would turn the phone over. I had it in the room, but I would turn it over so I couldn't see it. And then I started like not even looking at it if I got up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night or something like, cause same thing. I needed that sleep. My nervous system needed the chance to relax. And so I think this is a good time to talk about how this impacted your physical and emotional health before you found craft or, were able to knew more about how to handle things.
Yeah, I just I was just falling apart. I mean, you could see it when you saw me. I had lost a lot of weight. I was so the chronic stress of over a long period of time. And I know how to take care of myself. And I completely just I got sick. I got an autoimmune. I mean, I really, really started to really get sick. And I, you know, when I think about that, I think about how important it is for us to take care of ourselves because the amount of, I mean, my son is in my life, and he's watching that and he knows he's the reason. And it just crushed him to see me falling apart and to see me being sick and the pressure. He would refer to the pressure so much, the pressure that puts on your loved one to I've got to become okay because my whole family is falling apart. I mean, you know, they're not even adults. I mean, he wasn't even an adult then, you know. So if you can do anything that you have influence over is yourself and what you can control. And what I can control is I can do everything in my power to try and get better and get healthy. And that's, exercising, it's eating better, it's therapy, it's going to support meetings. I went to every kind of different kind of support I could find. Just take what you want. You don't have to believe everything they say. It's just nice to be able to be around a room of people suffering like that commonality. It's just it just soothes you a little bit. So yeah, I mean, I just really got sick, and people don't give enough credit to chronic stress, and that's what it can do. So if there's anything I could tell people, parents especially, your child watching you fall apart isn't going to help the situation. That is
Mhm.
something you can actually do.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I think there's this like guilt that parents feel being okay when their kids are struggling. But like you said, it's so important. It is a gift to them. to see us doing well. And it's also a safety signal, right? Like that, if my parents aren't doing well and I'm not doing well, now what?
Mhm.
Right. So it really is a gift to them that we take care of ourselves. And like you said, I love you pointed out that we have full control over that. That's the one thing we can control.
Mhm.
And so if we focus on that, we're in a better position to help them. Um, so going back to so your son went to therapeutic boarding school and then he got out of there, and was there more struggle after that?
Um, he did pretty good through high school. He finished high school, and then went to college, was in a fraternity, and then it just kind of unraveled. It started to unravel. He started the bad behaviors again. He started, self isolating, and um, we weren't in the house with him, but I knew I knew things weren't great. At that point, I do believe I could still see where he was on my phone, and I could just see he was never leaving the fraternity. He just wasn't. He just wasn't leaving. And my husband at that time and I had gone and got a second home in Arizona, and we were gone a lot. We traveled a lot, and um, it just kind of all started to, there would be the breaks. He would come home, and then there would be a spiral. And, you're like, okay, so this is getting serious. And, what should we do? And, like, come out of it. And be like, yeah, I'm just going to go back to school. It'll be fine. And then it went into, okay, this is serious. And he decided, yes, I'll go to a treatment program. So he went to a 30-day, and, you know, in this time period is when I found craft. This is when all I started to unravel, my health started to unravel, and I just started, like, oh my gosh, this is all happening again. I thought we got through this. And so that's when I just really started to learn about craft. I found Allies in Recovery podcast, and the minute I heard it, I was like, oh, that makes more sense to me as a mom. Like, nothing else made sense that I heard. I'm not I can't do that other stuff. I can't do the tough love. I can't not be part of my son's life. I Those things don't make sense to me. They don't they don't resonate with me at all as a mother. And I'm not willing to do that, so I got to figure out something else. And when I did the modules online and did the training, I thought, okay, so this is practical steps, practical things, little things that I can do that can influence him to make different decisions, to get him healthier, to open that communication. It's a lot about the communication, keeping that open, keeping that connection. And once I started doing those principles, it completely blew open our communication and a whole different relationship. It really, really was fantastic. I mean, there's nothing like that. I mean, it's you got to study it. It's really hard. Like, I would practice reflective listening with my husband, and it's not something that comes natural. I
No.
mean, it just isn't.
I appreciate you saying how hard it is, because a lot of times people will tell me like, yeah, I've been practicing craft for years. And what they really mean is they read a book about it. And it is, it is a very nuanced skill. And it is so much more than reading a book. It does take so much practice, and it is a whole new way of thinking and being.
Yes. And that's why I like the podcast, because I would walk, and that was another thing that I did for my health. Is it wasn't about weight loss, it was about the meditation of a foot in front of another. And I
Mhm.
would put on a podcast and walk till your shoes fall off. I mean, I just would walk and walk and walk and listen. And the podcast, I liked it because it was specific. A lot of them were specific of your 11 wants to one that comes to mind is your loved one calls you and wants to leave treatment early. What are you going to do? That's the tips I need.
Mhm.
And so that happened. That happened. That exact
You
scenario
don't try
happened.
to talk him into staying, right?
Right. No, the he called me and I said, I paused. That's another tip is you're supposed to pause before you respond at all. I paused and then I said, tell me more. And it was like a mic drop. He didn't even know how to respond, you know? And he just said, thank you so much for listening.
And he
Yeah.
stayed?
No,
No,
he
he
would have.
left?
He would have if I would have made him. He said,
Okay.
I'll stay if you want me to. And everything in me wanted to say, yes, stay. But I've been training for this moment. And I said, this is your recovery. You've got to take ownership of it.
Mhm.
And I'll support you how I can.
So, I think that that's great to think about. That would be so hard for most parents to say. What was behind that for you?
Behind that for me was 5 years of me trying to control the situation and looking back and seeing that I didn't control one thing, that none of that worked. And I can't keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result. I can't keep treating him the same way. I have to change so I can influence him in a different way. And so much of recovery is relapse. That's part of it. And you got to become okay with that. You've got to know that it's an act, recovery is an active thing, and relapse comes with it. I mean 99%. I mean, how many people do you know that it one rehab and they're good? I don't know many stories like that.
I don't know any.
Right. So you've got to become okay with that being part of the process. That's part of it. And you've got to learn how to respond in a way to when they do relapse, they can come to you with it. The first time he relapsed out of that situation, when he came home early, he called me in the middle of the night. I hadn't silenced my phone yet. I was shortly after that phone call. I silenced my phone at night, and he said, "Mom, I just wanted to let you know. I had a lapse." And I said, "Oh my gosh, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you for calling me. You've never done this before. I recognize that this is new behavior. I recognize that you have made a decision different. And I'm so proud of you for that."
Yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, imagine how that felt to him. Has he ever shared that with you, how it felt for him
Yes.
to
I
hear
mean,
you say that?
yeah, he was so relieved. He was so relieved. He didn't have this pressure to be perfect. How is someone who's doing something harder than I've ever coming oh, being able to come out of this substance use disorder is probably harder than anything I'll ever do in my life.
Mhm.
So I'm asking this young child, this young adult to do this perfectly. I mean, you're just setting them up for failure. So I very quickly, I look for progress, not perfection. It's all about progress. Is this one step forward? And my motto is just do the next right thing. So after this call, what's the next right thing? Do you want to reach out to, are you going to meetings? Do you want to do that? What do you want to do with the next right thing? What is it? The next right thing could be in the next 10 minutes. It could be the next week, but it's just just keeping it very focused on that present moment. And what's the next right step? Let's not go to the past because that's all fear. And that'll take you down in a minute. Or the future. Both of them take you out of the present moment. You just have to stick with, okay, what do you want to do right now? What's the next right thing?
Yeah.
And that simplifies it for him enough to think about it. And okay, I don't have all this pressure to be perfect. My next right thing is I'm going to go to sleep, and tomorrow I'm going to start a good day, and I'm going to, journal or whatever it is he wants to do. And I'm going to try to do better tomorrow.
Mhm.
You know, it's, you just get so wrapped up. It's such a chaotic circle. A tornado, that's what I call it, is kind of like a tornado. You're stuck in this tornado and it's just spinning everybody around him, and we're all just trying frantically to get out of it. And you have to really use some tools. It can suck you in so quickly.
Mm. So I'm listening to you talk about this different way that you're approaching things, that you're just asking him to do the next right thing, which I know is so hard for a parent because most of the times, hear parents say like they have a list of things that their kid has to do, because if they do those things, then that's going to provide mom and dad with peace of mind and a sense of safety. And so, how did you start providing that for yourself so that you could stay out of that fear and need to know, like looking for him to take actions that made you feel better? You weren't doing that anymore. You were just focused on what's best for him and the next right thing. How did you make that switch? What were you thinking and feeling?
Well, I did a lot of breathing exercises, and I did meditate. Um, you just have to really become mindful.
Mhm.
Um, it's a practice. I mean, I wore a nerve stimulator that kind of helped my vagus nerve. Um, I really, really delve into the podcast episodes of, okay, so I would go find one that was kind of like the situation I was in and get the advice of what am I supposed to do in this situation. Really just pausing, not reacting, pausing and remembering that this is his recovery, that he's got to go through this. He's going to have to do it. And, every situation's different. Every child's different. Every situation has a different level of harm that comes with it. Sometimes you don't feel like it's that imminent of desperation. You feel like you can handle it a little bit better. Sometimes, I mean, everybody has these horrible stories you can tell that just really frighten everybody else who hasn't been through it. But there's hospitalizations that happened. There were very traumatic things that happened in this whole scene. I mean, it was not like some pretty fairy tale wrapped up in a bow. I mean, this, was a series of, is he gonna be alive? And sometimes that's all I stuck with was he's alive. I'm just gonna focus on that. He's alive. All of that 80s tough love, all of that jargon, that was when the drugs now, that's not what we're looking at. This is
Mhm.
every drug can kill you. Every little tiny pill can have something in it that kills you. So it's really hard to not really panic when they're getting stuff off the street.
Yeah.
So I would just hang on to he's alive. Today he's alive, and we'll just go from there.
Mhm. Yeah, we do nervous system regulation in my mom's group because if you can regulate, that's
Mhm.
more than half the battle, right? You mentioned the vagus nerve stimulator, the breathing, all of those things, whatever works for each person. But I appreciate sharing one that there were traumatic things that happened. This was hard, that, you know, and that you had to work at it because
Mhm.
I want to normalize that um, this is something that all parents have to work at if they want to change how they're experiencing this and how they're interacting with their child. So when you started getting healthier and more regulated, how did that impact the atmosphere in your family?
Well, I mean, everything got better, honestly. Like, um, it's really hard on the whole family unit. I have another son that's older. Everybody suffers in this situation. And I just, when I got better, I was able to be calmer and I was able to um, have better conversations with all the family members. But it really, that's a process, healing the family. We're still rebuilding anew. It's new. We can't go back to the way we were before. We're learning how to trust each other and be around each other in an unheightened state, which is really hard. And I didn't think that would be, I didn't even really think about that part, but I noticed just like, my son's doing well now, but even if he's doing well, we have to relearn. We have to use those skills and build that trust back up with each other even. I mean, it really shattered kind of how we communicated with each other. We didn't even really know. I think you get stuck in survival mode. You're not really a family anymore. Everybody's kind of in their own lane trying to keep it together, trying to, you know, support this person in the way they know how and not lose themselves, and not fall apart. Um, but slowly it can happen. You just have to be pretty intentional about it. I noticed my husband and I had gotten in this kind of cycle of just bickering. We didn't even know what we were bickering about. We just didn't even notice we were doing it until one of my sons said, "Come on, guys." And we were like, what are we doing? We forgot how to be loving with each other and be caring and calm. How do you bring calm back into your life when you've been in a tornado for so long? You have to be really intentional.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to take time.
Hmm.
So harm reduction is a part of your story. How did you learn about it and like what did that look like?
I followed some different groups on Facebook. Other parents like me. All mom's path. What's that one? The path.
Moms for all paths to recovery.
Yes. And they talk a lot about harm reduction techniques or pathways and stuff. And I mean, why in the world would we not look at everything? All we're trying to do is keep them alive. Why is there a stigma on any of it? Why not? I mean, I just don't even understand the resistance. Um, I think maybe the resistance comes from just our conditioning, the money wrapped into traditional rehabs, the money wrapped into pharmacies, what we've been told for so long, and how we just judge people for the way that they're. I mean, if they're getting better, that's all I want. If we're making strides towards, you living a better life, whatever that looks like for you, I'm on board with it. I don't know why in the world we're judging people for methadone or Suboxone or any of those things. Why?
Yeah. The first time I heard about harm reduction, my daughter was on house arrest and on like she was a teenager, but she was on like something like probation. And they talked about harm reduction to me. And it was the first time I'd heard of it or anything like it. And I just remembered it gave me, I hadn't heard of craft yet. That was to come a little bit later, but it gave me a first breath of relief of because I'd had this abstinence only mindset because that's what I had heard. She's got to be abstinent forever or we're failing. And hearing about harm reduction and him explaining to me, like, yeah, I'm pushing her to completely quit, but my goal really is to just get her to do a lot less and be more responsible and to use harm reduction. And it like blew my mind. And I was just like, oh, like, okay, we don't have to be perfect.
Hmm.
So much pressure.
I know. How can anyone succeed with that?
Yeah.
I mean, it goes, if you really just use basic logic, it goes against everything that you think should happen. And I it's so frustrating when, you talk to people and they're like, "Well, but he's, drinking alcohol. It's working for him. Whatever. He's alive." Like, why
Not
are you
using
judging it?
heroin.
Yeah, he's not using heroin, you know? One of the last substances that my son had an issue with was the 7-OH kratom, which you can get at a gas station, which is gas station heroin. That's what the nickname is. And thank goodness they've, kind of outlawed that almost everywhere now. But, there wasn't so much stigma with that. Like, it is just as bad, you know. You can go to the liquor store, but if you're not an addict, it's fine if you drink. There's just all of these things that just don't make sense if you really think about it. And you're asking someone to abstain from every single substance on earth, or they're gonna be a failure. And I just don't believe that. I've seen it. It can be different. There are different ways to recovery, and recovery looks different for everyone.
Yeah, I
And
know people who are like, who can drink, they just can't do hard drugs, and they're completely abstinent from those hard drugs, and they drink, and it's not a problem for them.
yeah,
That just is not one size fits all.
yeah. And people judge those people. They think, well, it's just a matter of time,
Yes,
you know,
yes,
they don't
heard
believe
that.
it. They don't believe it. And I don't care. That's how I feel about those people. If you want to have that opinion, that's fine. But I'm just trying to keep people alive. So,
Right.
you know,
Yeah. So your son ended up pursuing ibogaine treatment, which we're not going to be able to really get into all the details. That deserves like probably multiple episodes if I was going to talk about all of that. But just for parents who have never heard of it, can you give like an overview of what the experience was like, and how, from your perspective, how it helped your son?
yes. When I found out about Ibogaine, I think I heard it on a doctor's podcast. They were talking about clinical a trial that was done in Stanford, a study on veterans with PTSD and substance use disorder. And that study showed this remarkable recovery. It was like over 80% of they got off their medications, they got off the substances, and it just really was transformative for them. So I thought, oh my gosh, what is this? So let me look at it. And I really researched it a lot, as much as a person can. Um, and now there's a lot more information. So I would just say my experience was that it was transformative. I want to shout it from every rooftop of every rehab facility. It is, there's some caveats. You have to have a healthy heart. You have to be substance free when you go, which is that's a hurdle we went through. I mean, we detoxed and waited and got him there. But for my son, what he told me is that he took the medicine. You're there for a long time. You have like days before, you have a lot of prep, you have a lot of therapy, you have a lot of kind of like getting yourself intention setting. And then you take the medicine, and then you have another day that you process. And then you kind of go through this whole like 10-7-10 day. And he said, he just, it made him kind of go through his life and kind of relive some of the traumas and the things that he'd been struggling with, and just deal with them, see them for what they were, and leave them. They don't bother him anymore. He just saw it for what it was and was able to move on. And that he also said he had a lot of he got to see what we went through, which I thought was really interesting, because your loved one is messed up. They're not living what you're living. And he got to really feel that and kind of work through that shame, because everybody who is doing this to loved ones feels so much shame. And that keeps them in addiction. That's very, very powerful, that shame. And when he first FaceTimed us afterwards, a few days later, I could see it in his face. It was just, he was so just smiling from ear to ear and happy. And um, he just said, "It's just wonderful. It's just wonderful." And I think part of what he was feeling is the magic of the ibogaine, instead of the other psychedelics that some people talk about a lot, is the neuroplasticity, what it does to the brain. It rewires the brain. It resets the serotonin and dopamine receptors, those opioid receptors. So you don't have, I think a lot of times people come out of rehab and they're like really motivated. They've been sober for 30 or 60 days. They are really motivated, but their brain is still hijacked. It's still wired for that substance. And I think why this is so successful is because that's fixed. And I know it sounds woo-woo, but it is. It's fixed. You don't have withdrawal. You don't have, he said, I don't look at drugs the same way at all. I don't, I may think about them, but I can choose different. And it gave me my choice back. It had, nothing's a magic bullet, but it gives them the time and the space for their brain. That ibogaine stays in their brain a lot longer. It works a lot longer than most psychedelics. It's like a 3 month sometimes, where it's rewiring and getting all of those things working again to where they can choose differently. And it has really dramatically changed a lot of lives. And I know that it's coming to the United States. It's already in clinical trials a lot of places. But man, if I had someone who was really struggling, go to Mexico and do it. I mean, or at least some give it some real research, because, how long do you research rehab facilities? Everybody dives in and reads all the reviews and sees what, people are saying about places. Do that with ibogaine. It is a resource. It is a medicine. And I believe that it will change the face of addiction. I really do.
Yeah, whatever it is, I think doing your research is really important, whether it's ibogaine or it's craft or harm reduction, whatever it is.
Right.
Because my perspective started to shift when I stopped receiving all the information that everybody was giving to me and what they were saying to me. And I started doing my own research, looking for a different way. It was like kind of like I pulled one thread and I got something and then kind of got on a trail and started really researching and learning things differently. So no matter what it is, do your own research and
Yes.
just see where you end up and what feels right to you.
Mhm. Well, yeah, I mean, that's what happened with my health. I went to a functional medicine doctor. I started doing things that my Western medicine wasn't doing. Why wouldn't I do that for my son?
Yeah. Yeah, I started doing all that stuff too. It's
Yeah.
interesting. It just kind of set me on a different path.
Hmm.
So, last question. If there's one thing that you hope parents remember from this episode, what would it be that you hope they remember?
Oh gosh. Just that there's a better way to go about this. There really is. Study, be your own advocate, work, just look at craft. I promise you there's a way you can influence your loved one. There is a better way to communicate with them. Keep that communication open. You know, Forget the stigma. Start talking about it. Everybody that knows someone,
Mm.
has someone in their life that is struggling. It is not a it is not a solitary thing. You know, I don't think I could stand in a room with 100 people and say, raise your hand if you know no one that's struggling that you love. They would all be in the same boat. So let's start talking about it. Let's support each other, reach out for help, study, become your own advocate, become your loved one's advocate, and really just, just start carving your own path.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this and to be here and share your story because I know that it's going to help anybody who listens to this episode.
Ah, well, thank you. I hope so.